I'd like to welcome this month's passenger profile, Mr. Walter Grund, who's joining me from Naren, Germany, which is a charming little village near Stuttgart. Welcome, Walter. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine.
That's good. Um,
It's 9 p.m. here, so I might look a little tired, but just to let you know.
you look great. You don't look tired at all. And if you do get tired, you could always have a rock star.
Yeah, actually, I have something similar, but it's tea inside
There you
here.
go. In a very American cup, I might add.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really appreciate taking the time to do this and for joining me today. And I'm excited to tell our members about you. Um, I want to start this interview a little differently than what I normally do. Something you said in an email conversation with my wife, who was actually prepping stuff for the taxi newsletter, the member success stories, caught my eye. And this is what you said. I haven't been submitting much more music lately. Just recently, a guitar solo jazz piece that got forwarded and signed. Because I have a full time job, and through Taxi, I've built a network with contacts and opportunities I can't even keep up with concerning writing possibilities. And I wanted to point that out because I've actually been using that in some of my marketing materials, trying to get new members and telling them that we've got so many successful members now that they've got these relationships on their own and they don't really need taxi, but yet they continue to stay members for the road rally and the occasional
Right.
listing. So thank you for bringing that up. Maybe now people will actually believe me when I tell them it's not just some marketing thing. Something else that you can verify for me is that taxi works really, really well no matter where you live. I mean, you live in a village, kind of near Stuttgart, and I get this question all the time from people. Will taxi work for me if I don't live in one of the music centers like LA, New York, or Nashville? And you've been a taxi member, I think, for 13 years, give or take.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
and if I remember correctly, you mentioned somewhere that you've had 10,000 placements. So pretty clear that even from a village in Germany, it works well. 10,000 placements. Tell our viewers how a guy who teaches guitar, composes for TV, film, and commercials, does music engraving, which I want to hear a little more about, produces music videos. By the way, I really, really like that video that you sent me the link to, and plays live gigs in and around, your village and elsewhere, I'm sure in Germany, which is almost, I mean, you're 7 hours drive time from Berlin. So you are out in the, in the hinterland, so to speak. How did you use Taxi to build a network of industry contacts that's resulted in about 10,000 placements of your music?
Well, you got to work a lot, and I'm a bit of a workaholic. So the first thing that you got to do is you got to write music. So that's one thing. And then you want to get it out somewhere. If it's your original music, so I always thought, well, how do I get any relationships? And I think I heard about Taxi in the early days where you could only submit via email and cassette, I guess.
Right, right.
So, um, so then I'm not sure when it was, maybe in 2006. Uh, it was actually during one of my hospital stays, and I had bad internet, but it was enough to get that two-part video that you did with Matt Hurt. I think it was one of the first videos you did, and Matt was in your office.
Right.
And I watched the whole thing, and that got me interested. But you always think, okay, I don't know if it's the right time. It's you got to spend some money and stuff like that. But it was always in my hinterhead.
I love it.
Yeah,
You've coined a
yeah.
new phrase.
So, so that's what you got to do. You got to write music, record music, get a Taxi membership. Finally, I got that in 2008, as you mentioned, and do some submissions to Taxi listings. And then what I think I had to adjust some of my techniques due to the response you get from your submissions. I think you get response if it's forwarded and sometimes not. And sometimes if it's not forwarded, you get also a little feedback on that. And I found that that's really valuable because it's not from your friend, I know, or your wife, who's always tries to support you and tells you that it's good. But you get feedback from the pros because you want to get your music out there. And sometimes you live on your music island and
Right.
you're not really knowing what's the standard of music. And in our case, it's broadcast quality we need. So that's what I did. And then I wrote more music, of course.
Um, was it hard learning how, being that English is not your first language? And when you started getting forwarded to production music libraries or whomever through Taxi, was it hard kind of learning the language of the industry or dealing with them on any sort of business level, or did that seem to come pretty easily?
It was pretty easy because I studied in LA. I lived for 1 year in Hollywood studying at GIT. Back
Hmm.
then, it had a really glamorous flavor to it because of some of the guitarists that left there, Paul Gilbert and Jennifer Batten, for instance, and another jazz guy, Frank Gambale. So yeah, I got my English ready back then,
Okay.
2000, no, 1994 it was. I remember when I arrived there, switched on the radio, I didn't get anything. It was so fast. But then when you stick around with English speaking people and not the Germans or Swiss guys too much, then you learn the most because you really got to talk, and then you get to that language, that music language, you get that down pretty fast. And I love speaking English.
Is well, your English is far better than any other language I've ever tried. I took French 4 times in a row and flunked all 4 times. I got F's. So, but I know how to ask where the bakery is. That I can do very well. Um, I know that you've come, and this is, I want to congratulate you on this, that you've come to at least a couple, if not several, of the Taxi Road rallies. And I'm guessing that the total travel time, I mean, just to fly from Germany to Los Angeles, just the flight is probably like a 10-hour flight. And then you've got to get, from your village to Stuttgart or Berlin and then whatever else. So it's probably, like a 15-hour travel day for you, and yet you did that, and you were able to take time off of work and come to the road rally. And I want to hear more about your road rally experience, but what would you say? I get so upset with our members that go, well, I'm in Las Vegas, I don't want to drive 4 hours to come to the road rally or take an hour long flight, or I live in Iowa or I live in New York. I'm just so grateful for those of you who live far, far away and make the effort. First of all, was the effort worth it?
Absolutely. So I remember back then we weren't that well off financially, and I had to pay for the extra oxygen that I need during flights.
Oh, wow.
So then well, but my wife, she supported me, and she supported the idea of going there. Of course, I told her, well, these guys are gonna be there that wrote songs with Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys and stuff like that I read, and actually it was like that, and it was worth the experience. The first time I went there, I visited a friend first in San Diego, and he lended me his car. I drove up on Friday because he had to work late Friday, and then he came on Saturday with a train, and I picked him up at the LA train station with his car.
Nice.
And
That's a
yeah, and
good friend.
so yeah, right. So then we stayed together at the event, and actually he got sick,
Oh,
um, so he could just attend one class. But he told me, I remember that he told me, well, it was just worth the whole thing was just worth for it for this one class.
wow.
Yeah, so it was. I think it was about theory stuff, and he's a piano player.
Yeah.
So, yeah, one thing that I really love about it is schmoozing.
Yeah.
So you hang out outside of the workshops with people. And actually, the first time we got an upgrade
Nice.
in a hotel because we had ants in there. So and then that brought me or brought us to a breakfast voucher, and I met another guy, and that was Matt Hare again.
Wow.
And he's originally from Switzerland, but we talked in English, and I could ask him just one or two questions. Um, wow, Bibom.
Let me get rid of my email alert. Okay. We won't hear that noise anymore. I'm back. Thank
Right.
you.
So so I met some of these guys, and you can just hang out and talk to them, and also to the the real guys of the industry who have written songs, and that's just normal people. I realized probably the higher you get in rank, so to say, um, the more normal you are, and the least we say abgehoben, that means lifted up in some areas, and they're just ordinary people that I met. I remember Robin Frederick, Jason Bloom, especially, and back then there was he died in the meanwhile, John Brahini,
Oh, John Brahim. Yep.
right?
Okay.
So and that was my first road rally, and I brought a lot of things back from there, especially one thing. It was about that I heard in two different workshops. It was about rhythms and song melody. So I went back home, and it was something that really clicked in my mind, because my melodies were kind of too straight, da, 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 not that much like da 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 da, but I realized that what these guys tell me is actually happening in the big selling songs, and makes it
Right.
so much makes them so much better, and gets more contrast and stuff. So I think the most important thing is you get that knowledge, but it doesn't have to stay knowledge. You got to practice it. You got to write songs. You got to write music. Otherwise, it's not gonna make you any better, I guess.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's one thing to hear it, it's another thing. And it's like muscle memory. It's like learning how to be a good golfer. You have to do it over and over and over so it becomes part of you, you know. And I'm glad that you actually did that. But that's probably, your work ethic. You're not just a workaholic, but you sound like somebody who sees the work that needs to be done. You're willing to invest the time and the effort, and it paid off. So at the road rally, was it hard, being jet lagged coming that far, and all of a sudden you're thrown into a hotel with, a couple thousand other taxi members from all over the world? Was it hard meeting people or making friends, or did you feel comfortable right away?
Yeah. So I remember I stood in line with for the registration. It was a long line. It's Friday night.
Right.
Does it start Thursday night? I'm not sure anymore.
Thursday night, yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah, but if you're not just if you're open to people, start talking to others, it's really easy. You get in contact with everybody else really easy. So that's a cool thing. And you have one topic to talk about that you have in common always. That's music, because everybody's there for the same thing. So it's great.
I am really proud, somewhat amazed, and definitely humbled by the fact that so many taxi members, and no matter what level they are, come to the road rally, and they're very generous with their time, sharing knowledge, open to meeting new people. There's none of like, oh, there's the successful members standing in a corner over there, but they won't talk to that new guy from Germany because he's nobody to them. Instead, everybody talks to everybody. And
Right.
funny enough, I mean, we kind of chuckle behind everybody's back that the registration line is very long, but it actually serves that exact purpose you just talked about, which is
Right.
so many relationships are built in the registration line before the event even starts, that It's almost like we should, it's like a ride at Disneyland. We should charge an admission fee, which I won't. But um, and have you met collaborators that you've ended up working with as a result of going to the road rally?
Um, no, no, I have a great collaborator. That's my daughter.
That's right.
Uh, and I met somebody there who I met before because she made contact with me. She was looking for somebody um, who give her a sound bed or a whole song, like a playback, and
Yeah,
she could write the word, the lyrics, and the melody for it, record it. So we had a nice little collaboration for some jazz songs. That was funny, and I met her there in person the first time.
nice. Um, your daughter Charlotte, I watched several of the videos. I went to your site, I looked at you on YouTube. She's a very talented young lady, and I've got to say, I'm impressed by the fact that because usually when like a 40 or 50-year-old dad wants to work with a 15 or 20-year-old daughter, it's like, Dad, like, come on, you don't know anything. And your daughter seems to be the opposite of that, and she brings her youthful ears to the project, but she's got a really cool voice.
Thanks.
And I've got to say, she's sings in tune really, really well.
She
Um,
does.
and she's a good performer. She's the whole thing rolled into one
Yeah.
person. So you're very lucky that she's not embarrassed to work with her daddy.
No, no, no. And you know, one really cool thing. Uh, she joined me to go to the road rally 2 years later, 2011.
Yeah.
She was 13 back then,
Wow.
and was something really spontaneous. I had to get the oxygen done, and you had get the formula from the hospital, and you have to get get the formula to the airline in 2 weeks in advance and stuff like that. So, but
Yeah.
it actually really worked out. She got off 2 days from school, and we were all excited. Of course, me going back to LA, you know, when you're at some place when you're young, I was 20, 21 when I went to MI. So going back there is always a cool thing. And so I could show Charlotte around. I just talked to her on the phone today, and we just remembered what we did there. We met some other friends and went to Disneyland one day ahead, and then we
Nice.
rented a car, and I showed her Musicians Institute. She got a tour around there. Of course, we shot some pictures at the Hollywood sign, and yeah, you know, stuff like that. So she really loved LA, and then of course the road rally. And you know, I gotta tell you one thing before. I'm all, let's say like this, I don't have any talent music wise from my parents. They
Okay.
say they're totally non-musical. But due to my sickness, which I won't address too much, sports was not for me back then. So I got into guitar. And when I was about 12, I really started practicing, and it was so much fun doing it. And I had 18, no, until I was 19, I had classical guitar lessons. So I learned reading music, playing, yeah, not just strumming and stuff like that, but real classical guitar.
Yeah.
And I was actually thinking about going into the classical direction. But at the same time, I started learning the electric guitar, mainly also didactic to say that, you know,
Okay.
by
Yeah.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and during the MI year, I practiced 8 hours a day, just guitar. You know, and the Swedish guys, they had party all night long, and I was practicing guitar. So,
Crazy
yeah,
Swedes.
it was also sometimes hard because you could see other people that just do it like that, and
Right.
I had to really practice. But over the years in Germany, I went to music Hochschule, it's called. So that's like the university for music, and I practiced. I studied jazz guitar there for 4 years, and it was very different to the MI thing, but it went pretty well together. So and so I'd say I learned everything. I got a pretty good ear, I think, and good good skills, but I'm not a jazz player and could just do things like that. I know my harmony stuff and everything pretty well. But my daughter, she's got it in her blood. And you just show her something on the guitar. Sometimes my wife, she's also a guitar teacher, she
Wow.
shows her something, and then she can just do it like this. And we're really, then she gets bored because she can do it. So get me something new, she says.
Wow. And she's going to college right now for a medical career, right?
Yeah, right. So
So,
she's seventh semester.
wow. Congratulations.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, I'm very impressed with your daughter. I should have interviewed her. maybe,
yeah, we could do a
maybe
follow
next
up.
time we'll have the two of you a daddy-daughter interview.
That'd be great.
Um, you mentioned that some of your first results, as you called it in your bio, in 2006, first fruits started to fall off the tree, which I love the way you phrased that. When some of your songs got released as a CD title track in the U.S., striking lyrics blended with jazz sounds and simplicity and power of rock rhythms got acknowledged through several releases on the Sony BMG Provident label, Galilee of the Nations. So that was a while ago. That was like 15 years ago, but that had to be very rewarding. It's a validation. Like, wow, I'm doing something right. And, get on a major label release like that, really, really cool.
Right. So actually, that those songs were also written in hospital, in a rehab clinic. Yeah, and I had to stay on isolation
Yeah.
with a mask back then already. I couldn't join the other people in the eating room and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool because the owner of the label, he used to be road manager for Kansas, and
Wow.
I met him then once later. But that was a collab with a great singer, and his name is Ted Pierce, and he tours around the U.S. in churches. Um, and I did the vocals, so he could hear the melody and the lyrics. I sent them to him, and then he just recorded his own voice with it, and it was of course way better. But there was no music reading or whatsoever involved. It was just he's a natural guy. Also, he just hears it, and then he interprets it his way, and that made those songs so cool. And he was signed with the label back then, so that's how the whole thing started coming together.
And you've also written and produced over 600 songs and instrumentals, which got translated and sung in Latin America, Belarus, and Greece. You teach music, obviously, and you've got a DVD on acoustic guitar basics, in which you did in German language, and that's sold 2,000 copies, which is quite an accomplishment because it's not like um, a pop record that could sell millions. I mean, trying to sell an instructional CD to a very niche audience, 2,000 copies is very, very good.
Thank you.
Now I want to talk about the music engraving. Um,
Okay.
I've heard the phrase before. I think it has something to do with creating charts
Right.
but tell us exactly what Walter, it says in your bio, Walter's working as a chosen engraver for CCLI Germany on their Song Select project and works as a representative for the Roland/Boss company in Germany. So what exactly is music engraving and how did you get into that?
Uh, that has to do with another hospital stay because I got the flu. It was, I think, 2009, and I was in hospital for 2 weeks. Because when you're sick in your lungs, it hits you really hard.
Right.
And then I got a throwback a couple of weeks later, and I was again sitting in limbo there, and I was really devastated because back then I was a freelancer, so no teaching, no income,
Mhm.
and so I really thought about quitting everything. And I sent out an "help me" email, and somebody read it, and I knew him from before. So it's all that tells me it's always good to have and to have relationships prosper, because you never know who's gonna get into another job. So it was like this. It was a guy who used to tour with another Christian musician, Noel Richards from Britain. So then he got head of the CCLI office in Germany that just got founded, and they were looking for engravers. So what the cool thing about their idea is, in general, in Christian churches, they sing a lot. So that explains why my video got sold so much, because there are so many guitar players in the Christian field. You won't sell it that easily if you're a no name. But at that time, there was no Christian, no teaching DVD for guitar for the Christian sector. So that's why it was a really a niche, we call it.
Mhm.
So and with the engraving thing, so that was because I was so devastated. I sent out the email and they were looking for somebody. So I got in there because I made them an offer for a long-term relationship. So I wasn't asking for too much. And but I'm still doing that. And that's funny. I just engraved my first French songs, because I had French at school too. And I never had to use it except for going to holidays to France 2 times. But now I'm needing it, because I have to, engraving means you use a software to just put in the notes and the lyrics underneath and the chords above. So it's written out music, a lead sheet it's called. That's what you need to to get a song onto paper, and that everybody in the world can play it, because you have the chords, the melody, the lyrics, and the tempo and the style, roughly. So that will turn out to be the same song everywhere where it's got played correctly, of course.
Why do they call it engraving? Because back in the day, somebody had to actually engrave it, like on metal or wood.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because you hack it into your PC, of course. Yeah, because I'm just doing it on a PC. I'm not actually using a keyboard. Most of the publishers, they use Finale in the US. In Germany, it's all kinds of different stuff, but Finale is the software to go to. So I had to talk to English, because the company CCLI is they have an office in Portland, and I got some training there. So that was free training for me. And because the cool thing is, it's not just the songs. That's what every publisher does. But it got online, and there you have several features. You can transpose them in every key you want them to sing. That go with
Right.
your voice, and that got more normal now, because there are other platforms for songs that everybody can put their we call it chord sheet. So you see the lyrics and the chords above, and then you can also transpose it and stuff like that. But their um, their service is much more accurate, and provides lead sheets. So that's cool.
So you also mentioned, I believe that one of your hospitals says you started out working like on a 4-track cassette deck. I'm guessing something like a T-Acra Tascam Porta Studio, and then you developed your engineering and production skills once again during a long hospital stay. Tell me about how did you set up the gear in a hospital room, and how long did you have to learn and all that stuff?
Yeah. So it was like that when I was looking back. I guess that's normal when you get older. So I'm 49 now, if you consider that old. But you reflect more about your life and what you're doing, about your person, about your character, and stuff like that. So then I realized when I was 16, the money I inherited from my grandpa, that was locked into a bank account, and then it was free to use.
Right,
So I bought a Marshall, and I bought this. It was a Yamaha 4-track cassette recorder. You could do four
right.
track, but you could also bounce. It was like in the Beatles day, but with more modern equipment.
Wow.
So yeah, you just work with that stuff. And I remember I had a really cool guitar teacher. He was born in France. He had this long beard. He was like a father figure to me in the music field. And I remember I recorded a bossa nova. It must have been Black Orpheus from Louis Bonfa. And then I put on four guitars. And I remember he told me he listened to it. I brought it to the lesson, and he said, "Well, it's just too much of stuff you're doing." So I went back home. Next time, "Oh, it's just too much. Can you reduce it?" So I guess I just left it then there. But that was one part of the experience, because most of the times you're excited about all the things you can do with the new techniques, and then you just do too much. You do too much reverb and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I started there. And then years later, I bought a when it came out that you can buy these USB interfaces. I just bought one I could afford. It wasn't a Tascam interface with a blue line in between. It was two channels, and I had a laptop. Another guitar player, he told me, well, when I was switching from an old Mac clone, they were
Right.
switching software from. I had to buy everything new, so I said, no way. I'm gonna do PC. Back then, PC was the thing, and Apple. And now these guys who said it back then that way, now they are the, oh, you have a PC. So it's just ridiculous. You can use PC or Apple or whatever. So the daughter, my wife, they use Apple. I use PC, but I have several iPads here. There's an iPad and there's another one here. So
What do you normally what's your workflow process like? So let's say that you see a brief from a music library, or you see a taxi listing and you want to submit. I know I should mention that you're also multi-genre, and I always tell people, look, if you tell other industry professionals, oh, I can do rock, I can do pop, I can do country. The industry people think, yeah, right, buddy. And they discount your credibility because very few people can do that. I listen to a lot of your music, and you clearly are able to nail many, many genres. I mean, one minute you could be doing, nylon string classical guitar. The next minute you're doing rock. The next minute you're doing like a dancey thing. How do you what's your process? Let's say that you see a request where somebody's looking for light, emotionally uplifting acoustic instrumental track. How would you start? Do you sit down and chart it before you start? Do you sit down and lay down a little figure until you land on something? Go, "Ooh, that would be good," and then build from there. What's your process?
actually, that really depends on the genre. Let's say that the one you just mentioned, often they have some reference tracks. So the first thing I do, if it's possible, I download them, and then I try to analyze what's in there. Of course, it's a fine line between just copying what it's done there,
Right.
and but it's more about getting the feel, getting the tempo, and yeah, let's just call it the feel of it, because I gotta put that in. The first when I met my wife, oh, that's hard, in a jazz club.
Yeah.
We were listening to a jazz player, and he was practice. He was not practicing. That's it. So they were doing great things, but it was just so boring. It was just new. And the funny thing is, my wife, she asked me, because she was sitting up front. Now my wife said, "Oh, can you see what they're doing?" And I was a little bit, maybe arrogant. I said, "I didn't come. I didn't come to watch, but to hear." And then she said, "Well, he looks like he's playing the way he's playing. So he's because they were just sitting there doing like this."
Yeah.
So that's how we got into guitar playing, got together and got friends. And yeah. So what she feels, and that's the same with me, is more the feel of the music and what's behind it that you sometimes can't explain. Like I'm a big John Mayer fan. I just love it because there's so much feel, and it's so relaxed, and it's great. That's why I love him. So try to get the feel of the music besides all the other parameters like tempo and orchestration. That means just the instruments that are being used. So but then on the other hand, sometimes I had a little idea. We just played that song that it's an instrumental that got signed. I have the guitar here because I'm in my music room
Okay.
at music school, and the idea was this one. So I knew I just kept that, and I knew that would work really well for a Spanish thing.
Hmm.
And then after when it was asked for, I just recorded that with stuff around that. But that's how that one got started. And other times it was a cool melody. I'm also a really a chord guy who starts with harmonies. Um, and then sometimes I have a lyric idea. I remember one time I woke up and I heard something like "hit me," and back then I thought, "Oh, that's a cool thing, hit me with that hit." So now when I hear that little phrase, I think, okay, I don't know if it's that cool. On another time, I got the idea about that was the idea for a Christian song, a Christian rock song about the phrase when the Bible, Jesus is the rock. So
Hmm.
I thought, Jesus is a rock star. That's nice. And you know what? I didn't. I just wrote it down and told
Yeah.
my daughter and my wife, and then suddenly Charlotte, she wrote a song. She snapped it. She just got the idea and she did that song, and we were performed it. Um, it was a Saturday night thing, and we explained it
Right.
before a little bit, yeah? But everybody loved it. So that was one of the hits there. And Charlotte, maybe I get a little bit off track. She used to play and sing in a kids band, and the leader of the kids band came to class to me for guitar lessons. So we could always talk about how to do those songs. And those kids, they played on their own. And they, of course, they did the Jesus is a rock star thing all the time. It was one of the hits. So
Well,
it's really different. How to approach. I think what I don't like if I do it the same way every time, because then you get those stereotypes and everything sounds the same. But that's what I hate. That's why I screw up my band when I was doing with a worship band. I had a youngster band, and when I realized if somebody was just playing and or singing and not really singing it, the meaning of everything, or playing it like, "Oh, you gotta hit that drum like that." And I was just doing like, "Duh," and doing stops. And then people in my band, they were like running in the trap. So I did that a couple of times and I told them, well, you gotta be right here. And it created some other atmosphere because the audience, they can feel it. Well, they're not just playing the song over and over again like they did the other Sundays, but they're doing it a different way. And if it's just a chord here or there, or a stop, and then suddenly a drop, but it was more improvised, the arrangement that I did, and that led to some of the excitement. And I think that's just the nature I like to do, and that's why I like improvised music also. It doesn't have to be fully improvised, but that to get that little excitement and life into music. I remember I had to play with somebody who was not listening at all, and that was really frustrating. And one time I was playing with a bass player, and um, he couldn't listen, and he played off um, all the time.
Yeah.
And I was playing drums back then. I loved the drums, so I started playing drums. So, um, and I was really totally exhausted after this 1 hour. I could really feel that playing with somebody who's dragging all the time, that wears you out. Uh, that's really
So
something
now,
interesting.
when you create your music for media, are you
Yeah,
playing almost all the instruments yourself?
yeah, I do.
And have you had more success with instrumental music or with songs as far as the number of
Yeah,
placements?
yeah. It's instrumental music. Also, it's easier to make, but that's but just my experience. Instrumental music gets used more often
Mhm.
because there's no lyrics that interfere with the
Yeah.
voiceover.
Right. Yeah, I'm always telling people that. And I think that a lot of people who are songwriters and they write from their heart and their head and their emotions, it's like, why would I want to do instrumental music? Well, because it can be the economic engine that pays you. It's your day job. You can still
Yeah,
write the emotional, heartfelt stuff at night, but instrumentals, no lyric, which is hard to come up with a good lyric, no potential of a lyric conflict because there is no lyric, no work on recording a lead vocal, which is often the hardest thing to get right on a record or on a song. Mixing without a lead vocal and without background vocals is way easier. And people just are so resistant. I don't want to do instrumentals. It's not who
yeah,
I am as an artist. Well, I wish they would reconsider that. I'm glad that you've discovered
yeah.
it. Um, I'm looking for an appropriate question to throw in here. Um, what advice, if any, would you have for your fellow taxi members who've been taxi members and they're frustrated that they haven't had any success yet? I'm sure that you've met them on the forum. I know that I've seen you post on the forum. And it frustrates me as the owner of taxi. I want everybody to be successful. I want everybody to love my company. Very, like a proud father of my company. And I see people like you that have had 10,000 placements and other people that have no signings, no placements. What advice do you have?
Sorry, we got a
A frog?
right. Well, the first thing is, and that's why I really like is you gotta learn, and it never stops. I guess just experience the whole Corona thing. I have there are other teachers, let's say in the teaching field, and they got totally overwhelmed with all the online stuff, and they couldn't do it. And I was doing online before schools got locked down, and it was really cool. I liked it. I was worn out, and then until I optimized things like camera and the earplugs and stuff like that. So it's the same thing with everything you do. You got to be open to learning, and I think that's just something in general. And even if you're accomplished something in the musical field already, if you want to get your music out in TV stuff, there's certain rules, or as you just mentioned, it's easier with instrumentals, and it's different, but it's not hard to get adjusted to those things. You just got to know them. Sometimes it's just something really little. I like just one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Give a
Um,
couple of
uh,
examples. I'd love to hear them.
a owner of a library, I did it has some rock groove in there, and he
Had,
just told
had some,
me
I'm sorry, had some what?
rock groove,
Oh,
some
okay.
drums, and he just told me to put down the snare in level, just the snare. So the snare was fine because um, I use RMX a lot and Spectrasonic stuff. Um, but he told me just in a short notice of an email, it will not work that well with the voiceover. Because normally I once heard somebody say, well, in certain genres, the snare is the same level as the vocals.
Mm.
Yeah, that differs, of course. That's different in some styles, but for that purpose, it was too much snare. So just lower it, and that's just a little thing. But I can still remember because when you when you've just once done it with your track, you can always remember things like that. And it's just a little thing, but it's important.
I think a lot of people, when they do get interested in creating instrumentals, that they think, oh, it's simple. I'll just take the vocal out of my song. But they don't really understand the form of a typical cue, how it's written differently from a song. They would try to put a full melody in that a vocal and lyric would normally do. And then it sounds, I always say, it sounds like 101 strings doing a Beatles cover. How did you learn those little nuances that made your music valid and desirable for media?
Um,
Was it
well,
trial and error? Was it feedback from the screeners? Was it what you learned on the taxi forum or the road rally?
it's it, it all comes together. You know, when I recorded at the when I was young, you have a melody and you're doing the bass part and the chords, and you gotta decide where to put them. Just let's talk about panning. And the main thing I tell people when they go on stage, and then suddenly the singer they put at the right at the corner. I told them, well, it's got to be a center. It's the main thing. It has all the spotlight on it. So that's what you put in the middle. So that explains why it just doesn't work if you have a full mix for a song, and you leave out the vocals. The center is gone. So you need to put something else in there. And I think the most important thing is melody. And then with the instrumental for TV, these are other kinds of melodies. They sometimes I have placed really beautiful songs that have a cool melody. One of my best sellers is Where Whistle.
Huh.
It actually got placed 2019 with a with an ad in Italy with Lidl. I don't know. That's something like Walmart in the
Okay.
state. Um, so the library, I told them that they did that. So the library is still going after Lidl because they didn't pay anything.
Oh my
They thought,
God.
no, but I'm doing the screening thing. So I when that recognizes when my music is played, even in the background, so that
Right.
audio tracking, I think you call it. So and that's a jazz tune, and I just whistle the melody. And maybe I tell you this little story. I like stories.
Okay.
We went to Italy with some other families. We rented a house with a pool, and it was such a small village. It was up on the hill. We had to get our baggage either with a what's it called, a roller thing, because
Right.
it was just a narrow street like this. There were houses right and left.
Okay. So you a dolly, I think is the word you're looking for. Kind of like what
Yeah,
when you check into a hotel and they put your luggage on that
yeah,
cart.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
just like that. But yeah. So and then I had my laptop with me, and I was always doing stuff. And while the others were at the pool, I went to my room, and it was the last night, and I wanted to get that instrumental done that I did, the whistling thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny, as I told you, that's one of my most successful instrumentals. And when we checked out of that house, I was told by the owner that it used to be a bed and breakfast. And this little room, it was a separate room we didn't use, right to the bathroom. And but it was really a cool room somehow. It was a little desk in there, an old one, and an Italian chair. And then I told the owner that I created some great music in that, and he said, "Oh, you know what? When it used to be bed and breakfast, Peter Gabriel stayed there once."
Wow.
It was really funny, and I like to tell that story because, yeah, it might be some inspiring stuff in there, or
Yeah.
just, just with the surrounding. You know, it's Italy, it's woods out there, and nature and
Sounds
birds
incredible.
singing.
What part of Italy was it in?
I think Toscana.
Oh man,
Yeah.
it's on my bucket list someday. I've been to the south of France, never the south of Italy. Um, oh, rejection. You've had 10,000 placements of your music. That's a big number by anybody's standard. But I'm sure that along the way you've submitted stuff to taxi listings or to libraries that you've built a relationship with through a taxi listing, whatever. And either the taxi screener doesn't forward your material or the library rejects it. How do you deal with rejection? Because clearly you're somebody who puts every ounce of their energy into making their music as good as it can possibly be, and then somebody goes, not quite right yet there. How do you deal with that emotionally?
Yeah, I guess everybody doesn't like, or anybody doesn't like rejection. But it's, and you don't like it in the moment, and you're not always saying, "Oh yeah, welcome rejection, I love you" and stuff like.
Welcome rejection. There's a song title. Welcome
Okay,
rejection.
welcome rejection, great song title. Yeah, but it's always good to sleep over it tonight and keep it. Don't react at the very same time, and think about it, and maybe asking other people how they think. How, let's say somebody tells you to bring in a piano, and let's say an Adele piano, ding 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 ding, eighth notes stuff, and yeah, why not just try it out? That's what I used to do with when I led some rehearsals. And you know that there's always somebody saying, "Oh, you can do this," and the other one, "No, that's bad. Let's do it like this way." But I just made it like a rule. Okay, we're gonna try out both right after each other, and then we're gonna decide what to do. And it was always pretty clear what to do. So it doesn't cost you anything just to try out what somebody suggests to you because he's rejecting your stuff, and then listening back to it, and maybe you hear it yourself that it sounds better.
When you and Charlotte have a disagreement when you're collaborating, who wins more of those, you or Charlotte? I'm curious.
We just talked about that today, because Michael, you called on Thursday night on my phone,
Yeah.
and I told Charlotte, I wrote her a message. She said, "Whoa, Michael called." And so I asked her today, okay, do you remember how do we how how do we work together, and do we have that "oh dad" thing? Yeah, sometimes she has, because what I'm always doing, I have a whole bunch of crap in my head, and I talk all the time, just nonsense. My wife, she doesn't likes it. She said, "I don't want to hear that all the time. You can do it with your students or whatever." Okay, so I
My
reduced that
wife
a
says
bit.
that to me too. Wow. It
See?
must be common amongst husbands.
Yeah. So, and that's why I do this kind of brainstorming. I just, and I think I got that from Jason Bloom. He said, well, just write everything down you have for if you're writing a song, or just record everything. You can always delete it later, or just don't use it. And that's what I do. And that's what, the moment I say something, I realize, okay, that might be not so good, but I still write it down or say it, and that's one of those moments when Charlotte says, "Okay, Dad." But she said the we when she doesn't like something, she just says it right away, and doesn't want to go on with something she's not really convinced of. So, and when Charlotte criticized something with me, um, I okay, I do it that way because I know I can always go back and do it the way I wanted to do it originally, and that works pretty well. And we have our little workflow now. When we started, of course, I was doing more of the lyrics almost, and she was always the melody girl
Hmm.
because she listened to more modern stuff and concerning rhythms in melodies. I'm more influenced by the 80s
Right.
or even older stuff. So, but I'm good at harmonies, and I used to do all the playbacks and yeah, and harmonies on guitar. And then we got together, and she developed a melody,
Well, you're
or we
very,
did.
very, very fortunate in that your preferred and almost entirely exclusive collaborator is your daughter, who you get along with. And I was going to ask you about that because, you know, at my age, the music, if I were writing music or producing in the studio again today, it would sound like music from the mid 70s to the mid 80s, because those are the years that I really fell in love with music and became active in the studio. And it would be very difficult for me, as I'm sure it is for many of our members, to break out of that habit of relying on what your brain has already
Yeah,
absorbed. Again, it's like a muscle memory. So you've got that built in with Charlotte, where she's a trusted collaborator, because there are collaborators and there are collaborators. It sounds like you
yeah,
really trust her judgment and that you guys have a good equilibrium. That's
yeah.
really
But
special.
you know, I just to pick up one of the things you said, I can't do any style because I can't
Right.
because I don't feel comfortable with a modern groove thing. Um, you know, I can't divide these hear the differences between the, let's say, the bass drum sounds that are hip and the
Right.
ones that are out already, or the ones that are hip that are really old because now they're hip again and stuff like that. I'm not into that too much. We used to do more of the dance things when Charlotte was younger and she was listening to that music. But now she's listening to different stuff, she said, and that's why we just recently did a song that's really jazzy, sort of. It has some cool bridge. It has a bass solo in there. She liked the bass sound, and it's called Pause because it has to deal with uh, Corona thing.
Right.
Everybody was on pause,
Hmm.
so that's something. Yeah, we might have developed a little of our own style, and of course, your taste changes a little bit. With Charlotte, it's happening more. Now she's coming in. She's doing DJing, so she works on that, and that's not one of the things I'm interested in because it's more four to the floor things with the bass drum and more, you know. And I'm not. Of course, I could do a dance track like this, but I wouldn't say that I have the knowledge of that music that I can really um, do some music for a listing that asks for something really contemporary in that field.
Um, what would you say? There are Taxi members and people who've not joined Taxi yet, that have known about Taxi for a long time, and they don't join. And I always obsess, like you obsess about music, I obsess about people joining Taxi or not. I want to know, what can we do to serve them better? What can we do to relate to them better? And what would you say? Do you have any advice for musicians who sit on the sidelines because they think, oh, everybody in the music industry is trying to keep you out or reject you, or there's so many other people doing it, I'll never be successful. And then I look at somebody like you from a small village, you know, I mean, I don't know, 7,000 miles away from Los Angeles, and you've got 10,000 placements. So clearly, I feel like the obstacles aren't there if you don't let them be there. A lot of people put these obstacles in front of themselves, rather than looking at something as, okay, it's a speed bump but I can get over it. They see it as a brick wall. Do you have any advice for people who have been sitting on the sidelines thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it, and never actually doing it?
Let me answer like this. I remember there's a cool guitar player I met at MI. He was from Germany too, And back then I was 20, he was mid 30s. And he said he quit his job. He was building bridges in Switzerland. And just,
Wow.
and it was the same thing with my roommate. He was from Boston. He was a policeman. And he said he quit his job because he never wanted to miss that opportunity. Just doing it, and maybe it works, maybe not. And I think that's the same thing with the membership. There's not so much to lose from because it's not so expensive. But what's important, you got to have a knowledge about recording, but it's got so easy. You got to love music and not just do it for the sake of getting rich. You know, and
Right.
that's not gonna work, and it's a long-term thing, and that's what I liked about Taxi. They don't or you don't, Michael, you didn't tell everybody, yeah, it's gonna come soon, and now, no,
Right.
it I
Yeah.
started
Give
in
me
2000.
$300. You'll be a rock star in 30 days. I promise.
No, no. Yeah, but right now I don't do many submissions, and right now I am not recording too much or not much, but I'm doing stuff with my students. And right now, that's more in the focus, but it changes. And summer break's coming, so I plan on doing more recording. Um, so yeah, if you feel and thinking about getting a member, and you feel you got time to spend, because you got to spend time. It's not going to work just by getting a membership. You got to record music, write music, and work on that. But I had back then, I had so much music just lying there, some people buying CDs. I wanted to get it out. And so that really worked for me. And it works different for everybody, because everybody's got different skills, different can write different kind of music. And yeah, so I think it's really rewarding if you get your royalty check, or if you hear that song that Charles and I last year wrote with his online online thing we did together
Right.
with the distance. It was called "You Cut My Soul," and the listing was asking for modern styles, but with a melancholy,
Oh, melancholy. Yeah.
yeah, melancholy lyrics, but still upbeat, in the range of Amy Winehouse, something like that.
Right. I remember.
So then I thought, "You Cut My Soul." I don't know. So I think that was one of the titles I had in my written my book, that when I collect all these cool ideas. And then we did that song, and that got already airplay actually on radio in Germany. That's funny. And the German Pro, they don't give you very much details. So I'm still trying to get track of where it got played for. What was it? The whole song? Was it just the instrumental, or what was it? So,
Well,
but it's
who's your
got played there.
PRO is Gemma, right?
Yeah, right.
Really, they don't supply those details. Wow, I'm shocked.
Yeah, and then it's different. And it's way more detailed in the States with ASCAP and everything.
Yeah,
That's why I do the tracking myself, but I don't have it for radio yet. But for
interesting.
TV, it's possible. Yeah.
And finally, before we wrap up, I want to talk to you. You sent me a link to the music video that you did. You said you're now branching out and working on music videos, and you did one with a band called Flying Kangaroos. I got to tell you, I listened to it 3 or 4 times and played it for my wife
Really?
yesterday afternoon at our house. I
Cool.
really like it. I like the way it was shot. I like the way it was edited. I really like the song. I like the chord progression is probably my favorite thing about the whole thing. It's very simple and kind of standard, but yet it's not. It's just different enough where you go, Oh, that's cool. So congratulations, man. I think you did a
Thanks.
really, really good job on that.
Thanks.
And I'll include that, a link to that in the description of the video down below when we put it
Great.
on YouTube. But how have you been able to take your skills as a music producer and use that organization and that thought process and any of that stuff in working on the videos?
The video thing, it just started with the whole Corona thing because I was not interested in getting into video and video cutting at all. But so the Flying Kangaroos, these are the students here at the local music school. And we just had a rehearsal before that. We rehearsed that song, Midnight Sun, it's called.
Wow.
And it's their original. And let's say I did more of a producer thing
Mhm.
and songwriting coach, let's call it. We had a lockdown in Germany, so school was locked. We could just meet online. And I used some of the sessions for telling about music styles, and the other one about harmony and the blues progression and stuff like that. And then I had the idea, why not write a song together online? Because I did the same thing with my daughter with a "You Cut My Soul"
Right.
song. And when I did it with my daughter, we found out that it was actually way easier being apart from each other. First, we started with Skype, but then everybody, both of us were doing researches and rhyme things with a PC or with a laptop. So both of us could use their own devices, and we didn't have to stick.
Ah, one wait for the other, right. You get
Right,
twice the productivity because you're both working at the same time.
right. And so
Uh,
it's really cool. We used Google Docs. So my daughter, she got some training for her studies because it was also everything is online there. So that's really cool. You can work on the very same document and talk to each other because we were online. I think we switched to a regular call, but I put in my earplugs so I had hands free.
nice.
Uh, and then we realized, wow, that's way cooler, way easier. We even if we're writing together in one room, we should do it like this in the future. Yeah,
I know,
it's really cool.
it's funny that you mentioned that. On my way to the office this morning, I need to meet with the A&R team, not the screeners, but the people who take care of all the A&R stuff at the office. And there are three of them here, and then one of them that works remotely. And I thought to myself, well, I can bring the three people into my office, but somebody got the vaccination, somebody else didn't. Somebody's comfortable wearing a mask, somebody else isn't. So I'll just leave them all in their offices and we'll do it on Zoom. And I remember saying to myself in the car on the way here, you know what? I think we're more productive now when we do Zoom meetings than we do when we're in house. And that's the same reason. It's because everybody has their work tools in front of
Right,
them during the meeting rather than three people watching one of them working.
right, right.
Wow, that's a great observation. I'm so proud of you and happy for you. And first of all, I enjoy your personality. I enjoy your work ethic. I enjoy the fact that you've had 10,000 placements from a village that is, so far away from Los Angeles, New York, and LA. And I just the whole thing I think is awesome. You're living the dream, and the fact that you get to work so often with your daughter and you guys get along and your minds are in sync on music. You're a very lucky man. So congratulations,
Thank you.
and thank you for taking the time to do this. What the people watching don't know is that Walter and I are going back and forth with emails and picking times. A lot goes
Right.
into what we make look so easy here on Passenger Profile. But congratulations, and I really look forward. This year, 2021, we're doing the road rally virtually again, just because we're not completely safe with COVID yet.
Right.
But I'm 99.9% sure that by 2022 we should be able to do one back at the West End, and I really hope that you're able to come. And if she can
Hopefully,
come, bring Charlotte. And I
I would
look
like
forward to
them to.
giving you both a hug. Thank you so much for doing this, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Walter Grund.
Thank you, Michael, for having me.